the understanding that a lot of us are going through this, sitting behind the screen thinking this is life. I think that's something that's extremely worthwhile to give a strong focus on.
Welcome to episode 10 of the Press Forward podcast. Thanks for joining us again, and if this is your first time with us, I hope that you find it useful. You can get this podcast each and every week by subscribing to us on Apple Podcasts or your favourite podcast player. Just use the buttons on the episode pages over at WP&UP.org/podcasts. Today we're going to be hearing from Remkus de Vries about his immersion in the WordPress community, how WordPress has changed his life, and how he maintains a balance with WordPress and his regular life. This is a trigger warning that towards the end of this episode we touch very briefly on the topic of depression. The Press Forward podcast is created by WP&UP. They are a charity working in the WordPress space to support the WordPress community. The help is freely available over at WP&UP.org. WP&UP have provided over 1,500 hours of companionship and mentorship. We've registered over 3,000 members, and over 3,500 hours have been donated by volunteers. And we've responded to 6,100 events. If you'd like to support WP&UP financially, then please visit WP&UP.org/give. And if you'd like to get involved in WP&UP, then please visit WP&UP.org/contact, or look for the social links in the footer of the website. Sponsorship is also possible. You'll be supporting the important work that we're undertaking, and you can also be featured on the podcast. The Press Forward podcast is brought to you today by Green Geeks. Green Geeks offers an awesome managed web hosting platform that's built for speed, security, and scalability, whilst being environmentally friendly. Enjoy a better web hosting experience for your WordPress website, backed by 24/7 expert support. And we thank Green Geeks for helping us to put the Press Forward podcast together. WordPress is a huge project. Sure, there's code, plugins and themes, but it's so much more than that. At its heart, WordPress is the culmination of thousands of people's interactions, hundreds of thousands of hours of people's labour. They work together towards a common goal, but that goal is not always exactly the same. Some of those interactions will be about coding, creating new features and capabilities that enhance what WordPress can do. Other interactions might be focused upon building up the community, which WordPress depends upon. Honestly, there are so many ways that people using WordPress work together to make it what it is. Far too many for me to list out here. Perhaps you yourself have interacted with WordPress and have a sense for how broad and deep it is. Today, we meet a man who has made WordPress important in his life. He's thrown himself into WordPress, and it, in turn, has enabled the life that he now leads.
Hi, my name is Remkus de Vries, and I am a manager of partnerships at Yoast, and I am probably known a little bit for organizing WordCamp Europe, starting it together with a bunch of friends back in 2013. Invest a lot of time in the polyglots and the event side of the WordPress project.
WordCamp Europe is a huge event. In June 2019, almost 3,000 people congregated together in Berlin to make WordPress physical for a while. What do I mean by that? I mean that often people interact with WordPress via their computer. They might know people through WordPress, but perhaps they don't get to see them face to face too much. It's a great way to make friends and cement relationships. WordCamp Europe is a giant WordCamp, but it did not come about in the way that you might expect.
Yeah, so in 2009, we knew there was this thing called WordCamp. We've heard of WordCamp San Francisco here in the Netherlands. And together with a few other friends here in the Netherlands, we organized the very first WordCamp Netherlands. And at the time, we had no idea what a WordCamp was, other than, it's this thing where you organize and you have people talk and do presentations and stuff like that. And we just went from there, and really not having a clue. But I took a strong hold of the Dutch WordPress community at the time. And I quickly realized there were WordCamps in other parts of Europe as well. And as I started going to more European WordCamps, there were a few people that I met at pretty much all of these, and one of whom was Zé Fontanhas from Portugal. We pretty much very quickly went to an idea where we said, look, this is all wonderful that we're uniting these local countries, these local WordPress communities with our WordCamps. But what about if we started seeing more of a cross-border thing happen? What if we could make it happen to have a European WordCamp? What would that do for, at the time, and this is almost 9 years ago, at the time, a lot of the communities as we know them now were not that organized. And our idea was, let's just try and force that a little bit by showing them that all of us are here. So obviously at the time, you could only do a city-based WordCamp, or possibly as an exception be a country-based WordCamp, which WordCamp Netherlands we were at the time. So we applied for that, and we got a no, because it didn't confine within the rules set. Now, as it so happens, both Zay and I, together with Tammy, Siobhan, and a few others, were invited to the inaugural WordPress Community Summit back in 2012 in Tybee Island, United States. And all the event team members were there, as well as Matt Mullenweg, who had the ultimate say in whether we could make this happen, yes or no. So it goes without saying that we tried our very hardest to get that okay. Like, we need this exception because the goal is to unite the European community. The goal is to see more cross-border activity. The goal is to have more collaboration between the two countries. And the goal is basically to not see ourselves as separate countries. And then we got the okay just by, being very diligent about what we thought was needed. And from there, we started organizing. So that was October 2012. We basically, about a year later, organized the very first WordCamp Netherlands in Leiden, the Netherlands. And I think we sold 832 tickets. We were blown away. I mean, we had no idea how many people were coming when we started it. When we had the yes, when we had the go, we had no clue. I mean, you hope that people are coming. You hope that you're not the only one with the idea of, hey, this would be a good idea. You hope that with a there's a large percentage of more introvert type of people in our community. We had no idea if we would get them out, and we did. I and the rest of the organizing team, we were blown away of the response that we got. But next week will be the 7th version in Berlin, and till this day, every time I'm at a WordCamp, I will have people come up to me and explain to me what it meant, that very first one. Now, we had a wonderful after party as well, so I'm sure that helped a little bit as well.
So Remkus and the friends who he mentioned managed to create what became WordCamp Europe from a desire to unite people from all over Europe. Since that first event, WordCamp Europe has grown and grown and takes more organisation than ever before. I wondered if Remkus was still actively involved in organising it.
Actually, I've been part of the organising team ever since. I still get a lot of enjoyment out of it. It's grown way beyond what we originally thought. And, you could argue that there's There's a very large contingent of people from the United States coming over. It was technically never originally the idea. But I've grown into understanding that that's also a necessity. We need that bridge as well.
If you've ever attended a WordCamp, you'll know that there's a lot going on. And I really do mean a lot. There's the speakers, there's sponsors, the venue, food, the creche, audio equipment, advertising, ticketing, accessibility. The list is truly huge. In the interests of clarity, I've never been involved in organising one of these events, but I know that the task is enormous. After being involved in so many WordCamps and all of the work that Remkus has put in, I wanted to know if he was still as passionate today as he was at the beginning.
I am. So for starters, I don't have that stress gene. I don't stress out. Stressing doesn't give any benefit. And I know that's a very simple thing to say if you don't have that stress gene, but it also comes from knowing that it really doesn't help you at all stressing about stuff like that. What helps is preparing. What helps is making lists, thinking about things, discussing things, not trying to solve everything in your head. Write stuff out, create a mind map, whatever you need to do to empty your mind into this is what we need to do. So I've been doing that, and there were years where I was less involved as I am, for instance, this edition. The joy that I get out of it, the impact that I see that it has, is still in such a magnitude that I get a lot of joy out of it just by organizing it. That's not even counting in the actual days of the event, meeting all the people, and then frankly, a lot of those people have become my friends and close friends even.
So Remkus is a big fan of getting people together so that they can share their experiences of WordPress. And I say bravo. In my life, not many of the people who I mingle with know anything about WordPress. They may have heard of it, but they don't know how to install it or use it. It's great to get together and feel that literally everyone around you is into WordPress, and you can talk about it, safe in the knowledge that they'll understand you and enjoy that conversation.
That was WordCamp Europe 2013 for a lot of people. I've been active in the WordPress community since 2006. I sort of took over the admin side of things of WordPress Netherlands. Because at the time, the end of 2007, basically, we had translations that were 3 months late. We had a forum that was overrun by spam. We had a whole bunch of other issues, and that really wasn't working. So I figured, somebody's got to do it. Might as well be me. So I started investing time in this. And as I did, I started to learn more about the other people active in the Dutch WordPress community. But quickly, that also turned into who else is on the same page as I am with my favorite CMS. And it's weird. I often say, I came for the software. I left with friends and family. And that's really what it is for me. That hasn't diminished. It's changed. It's very different now than it was, when I started playing around. So my first playing around with WordPress was end of 2005. I think we just got pages, and that was like blown away. Wow, you can have like a little CMS here. And if you see from that perspective of where we are now, it's not just the software that changed, it's the project that changed, it's the magnitude that changed. That the percentage that keeps thrown around, which is currently at 34%, that's crazy. I mean, looking back of being in here in this community for almost 13 years now, that's crazy to see the impact of what that is.
I think it's true to say that most people who attend a WordCamp come away feeling positive about their experiences. Perhaps that language is a little reserved, because I know plenty of people who find WordCamp to be the highlight of their year. That being said, some people find it hard to attend their first one. The reasons could be many, and so I asked Remkus to speak about his thoughts regarding how a new person to WordCamp might feel about such a big event.
WordCamp Europe in Berlin next week is a good topic because it's both a very good one to discuss, as in a lot of reasons why you should go. There's also quite a few reasons why you if you're very reluctant to go, why that might be a little bit too much. So we sold more than 3,000 tickets. Roughly 10% won't be coming. No shows is usually about what we have. So, you have a good 2,700 people there. If large crowds scare you, then WordCamp Europe is not for you. Having said that, what you will find there is lots of kindred spirits. And even if that kindred spirit is of the timid side or is of the I just want to sit here and listen and don't talk type of engaging, there's room for that. The openness and the understanding that we have towards each other is heartwarming, because there's a lot of us who really don't want to be in the spotlight and prefer, if I have to talk to you, then I will, but I don't necessarily want to. And yet, when you will go, you will see, just because you're meeting kindred spirits, that it's actually not as energy draining as you may think it is. And there's a lot of stuff you can learn, and not just from the presentations, not just from the workshops, not just from the all the educational stuff going on, but mostly from learning to communicate with other people, talk about best practices. How do you solve this? What do you think about that? I think one of the nicest things about, especially the WordCamps that have a Contributors Day, is you get to see how you can have an impact on where the project goes. There's certain things that we have more influence on, and certain things we have less influence on. But there's a whole wide array of topics that you can help contribute to your favorite project. Contributors Day is exactly that. So for those who are still hesitant, I think it's a good way to learn more about the project. I think it's a good way to learn more about the sub-projects within the project. A great way to learn more from, again, those kindred spirits that will be there as well. Some might even be more introvert than you are. I'm pretty certain you'll have a great time, just being there, catching the vibe.
One of the reasons that you might feel that WordCamp is not for you is because you don't feel that your skills match those of the others who attend. You're thinking that you'll be a round peg in a square hole and not fit in. Being an organiser of WordCamps, I was guessing that Remkus would have some thoughts on this.
You're always going to find people who are at the same level as you are. And some WordCamps are more tech-oriented. Some WordCamps are more content-oriented. And it's, if you're on either of those, inclined more towards either of those directions, then it's probably better that if content or blogging is your thing, then to go to a more content-heavy type of WordCamp. But the imposter syndrome, the idea is that you don't know enough, or that your knowledge is not in depth enough or wide enough or whatever to be allowed in the same space or to have a proper conversation with anybody else attending. That is exactly what it is. It's an imposter syndrome, because there's no under limit. There's a lot of people there who very, very fondly remember their first time they ever went to a WordCamp. And they quickly realized that as soon as anybody figured out that there's a gap in knowledge, anybody talking to you is more than welcome to help you explain where to look. And I don't care if if we're talking content and content strategy, or if we're talking somebody who taught himself to program in PHP and never really understood the difference between an integer and variable or the lingo that goes with PHP. It doesn't matter. You're not going to be ridiculed about it. You're going to be applauded for even trying. Yes, I don't think there's an age limit, top or bottom. Just very recently, WordCamp in the Netherlands, and I forgot his name now, but I also met him in WordCamp Nordic in Helsinki. There's a guy who's basically, he's a pensioner, or whatever the correct term is. He discovered our community. Not necessarily because he's a heavy WordPress user, but he was curious, like, what is this community? But he discovered our community and quickly learned that it's a very opening and warm and welcoming community. And he's like, I like this. So he even started sponsoring us. He even started sponsoring WordCamps. And, face value, like, what are you getting back from it? He's like, I don't care. I enjoy this. I think this is a good thing to have and to be at. That's that end of the spectrum, I guess. And technically pension is 65? Yeah, but, and we see the same thing happening for the younger visitors as well. We have kid camps now, or workshops for kids within the larger WordCamps. We have them in Berlin as well. I think it's the same. It goes the same way. We're very opening for anybody just wanting to learn, just wanting to be there. That's basically what the whole vibe is. So I'm 45. The majority is younger than I. I don't feel old when I'm there. There really is no age gap in that regard. So I gradually moved from the tracks themselves to the hallway track. I'll pick a few topics or speakers that I really want to see. And I'm not claiming I understand what everybody's talking about, but I don't necessarily need to see and hear every single talk. Everything is being published on WordPress.tv anyway, which, for those that I can't visit or happen to get caught in the hallway track, there is the possibility for me to later view the presentation anyway. I get the most out of connecting with other people.
So moving on from WordCamp, I wanted to talk about the wider WordPress community. There are events going on all over the place most days of the week, and so it's likely that there's something close to you. But how do you find out about those?
So the easiest way to find WordPress events is logging into your dashboard, into your WordPress dashboard. You will find there's a WordPress events widget in there that will display the local WordCamps and WordPress meetups. I think first even, I think they look at a range of 150 or 200 kilometers. I'm not exactly sure what the range is, but anything happening in relatively local will be posted there as well. So that's the easiest way to find a WordCamp or a WordPress meetup. And just click on through and you'll see what the topics will be, what type of speakers there will be, and if that's something for you or not. And you can slide in the back and sit on one of the last chairs. That's fine. But you can also come a little early and see who's there and start talking to people. If, whatever is your thing. But guaranteed you'll have a great time. Upon entering into the WordPress community, I found that as like a warm bath. It was like I had a simple question. I got a straight up answer. Wonderful example of this. I don't know if you know who Justin Tadlock is. So he's the creator of Theme Hybrid, a theme company, and wonderful themes he's built over the years. Very knowledgeable, very eloquent in explaining in his tutorials on what to do. I've always enjoyed reading whatever he puts out. You can find his very first post on the WordPress support forum still. His handle is Green Shady. The question he asks is so basic. You go like, how did this guy not know that? Like any other person venturing into something new, you have to start somewhere. And I think that's a great example of what can happen, how welcoming the community is.
Because Remkus is a massive contributor to and fan of WordCamps, that's where this conversation has gone thus far. But we're going to change course a little. We WordPressers often work with computers all day, and although this might be your idea of a dream, it can also lead to other problems. Isolation, not getting out enough. Left unchecked, these feelings can become overwhelming. Outside of WordPress, people might turn to physicians to seek support. And I wondered if Remkus had any thoughts on how the WordPress community can assist one another.
I'm not a fan of hospitals and physicians to begin with as the first place to look for support. So looking among your peers is where the first looking should be happening. For the most part, that a lot of us will have had moments of doubt, of not knowing what the next step will be, feeling locked, feeling all these different kinds of emotions. I think it's a very healthy thing to have a group within, amongst your peers that is dedicated to helping out wherever they can. And I'm not saying exclude the hospitals and exclude the physicians. What I am saying is that you are not alone, absolutely not alone. And that means that if whatever problems or whatever road bumps you keep hitting, you're also not the first one to have those. And I think it's a great thing to understand that you are, especially within the WordPress community, and again, I don't know any other communities very vividly, but within the WordPress community, there's a huge understanding for where somebody can come from. Well, we have a Dutch way of saying this, het rugzakje. So basically the backpack that you're carrying along. We're aware that you have it. Knowing that doesn't necessarily make it easier talking about it, But it's good to know that there's a lot of people out there that are being open about, their struggles, open about seeking help, open about, even the heavy stuff from depression and what else is beyond there.
Remkus has a history of life coaching and has ensured that he's thought about himself and how he can keep himself sustained, keep himself active. His approach might not work for you, but the important point is that he's figured out what keeps him healthy and has made time in his week to do that thing.
I found something that is very therapeutic for me, and I don't think what I do necessarily works for everybody, but what I do is strength training. I lift a lot of iron, basically. And the idea behind that is because I'm in my head all day, there's a disconnect between my mental state and my physical state. And I became aware that the more that I allowed for that to happen, the less sane I felt, both mentally and physically. In other words, there's a strong connection between a healthy mind is a healthy body. What I started doing is lifting weights. And, over the years, those weights became heavier and heavier. And now that they're at the level that if I want to successfully do that, I have to have my full concentration. There cannot be any other thoughts. So that's something that works for me. But the idea is that you look for that disconnect and you find a way to be connected again, because that's basically what it is. That screen disconnects you from who you truly are. And it's a weird thing to say because I, look at a screen all day, and I have for the last 15 years now. I mean, even longer. I think the first 2 years I started working was not necessarily screen related, but pretty much afterwards. And I think it's good that we become aware that that's actually the issue, that we are disconnected by staring into something that's not us. Now, I'm a strong believer of us understanding that we are more than the job that we do. That's just a role. I take the mens sana in corpore sano. I take that as a very, very strong pointer in what I need to be conscious about every single day. Because if I don't, I quickly go back to habits that I know that are not very healthy or not sustaining me in the long run.
So WP&UP is taking on the role of offering support to people in the WordPress community, supporting them when things are not going to plan. That might be mental health, physical health, business or skills health. Given the fact that Remkus has been involved in the WordPress community for so long, I wondered if he'd come across a similar initiative at some point in the past.
I don't know of any other organization that does something similar or has done something similar. But from what I see, the content that you have put out, the stuff that you're doing, the stuff that you're investing time in to learn more about, I think that's exactly what the community needs. The understanding that a lot of us are going through this, sitting behind the screen, thinking this is life. I think that's something that's extremely worthwhile to give a strong focus on.
Remember that WP&UP is here to help you. Visit WP&UP.org. The Press Forward podcast is brought to you today by Green Geeks. Green Geeks offers a specially engineered platform that gives WordPress users web hosting that is designed to be the fastest, most secure, and scalable hosting available in multiple data centers. Their WordPress hosting makes deploying and managing WordPress websites easy with automatic one-click install, managed updates, real-time security protection, SSD RAID 10 storage arrays, Power Cacher, and expert 24/7 support to make for the best web hosting experience. And we thank Green Geeks for helping us put the Press Forward podcast together. Okay, that's it for this week. Please let us know if you're enjoying the podcast, if you're finding it useful or helpful. You can reach out to us at wp&up.org/contact. Remember that there's a serious point to all of this though, and that is that WP&UP is here to provide help and support. That help is available for you or people you know and can be easily accessed at the WP&UP.org website. Spread the word about this new podcast. Tell your friends and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or your favourite podcast player. Remember, together we can press forward.